Hello YouTube, and welcome to the first episode of the Educated Barbarian focused on the happy life by Seneca. I have an announcement for you guys. If you have read the books, I've actually decided that we're going to do without the discourses because upon rereading it this weekend, I realized that there's too many similarities with the other pieces of the segment, and therefore it's just not necessary. So after the happy life, we're going to move forward onto Nietzsche, onto Jung, and the books I'm going to select for that new cycle that should be connected and have a common theme. And of course, I'm going to share with you the second I make the decision. I will pin it in the comments underneath these videos. For today, we're starting the last book about Stoicism. And a big portion and reason why I decided to make it the last book is because I've realized that the three pieces that I've selected and that of course are included in this book, actually complement each other well, meaning that it wasn't just by mistake if they put them in this book, especially in this order, because I realized that the meditations was more of the poetic side of Stoicism. The Enchiridion focused entirely on the theory, and this part by Seneca is more about the practice. So the Trinity has been completed. Every single aspect and piece has been covered. And I do think it was very important to do it in that order, because you could argue that starting with the theory or even the practice would be more interesting and keeping the poetic aspect of it for the end. But the problem with this is that I believe that Stoicism can be a little bit rough and coarse around the edges, for certain people. And therefore, I believe that if you introduce it with the more, again, lyrical writing of Marcus Aurelius, it has a stronger ability to draw the person in, especially because his style is very personal and connected to the person who reads, because he was writing in his journal. So, of course, it was very warm. You start someone with Epictetus, a lot of people are going to find it too cold and impersonal and are not going to be able to actually apply it. So you start them up with the meditations, then you apply the theory, you present the theory with Epictetus, and this part here is 100% practice. So it's practicality, things to apply to your life, because philosophy is an applied science. And the science of a happy life is one that is relevant to us all. We all want to live a happy life. And therefore, Seneca actually blessed us with this writing, which is actually quite long. You're going to find that I do not, of course, cover everything. And this is why I highly encourage you to actually read the books yourself. And I hope that before you watch these videos, you have actually read the book, because you need to make up your own mind about it. But after reading it for the second time again, I really, really like this. It might actually be my favorite part of this entire collection of Stoic texts. So, let's start. Chapter 1, on a happy life and wherein it consists. There is not anything in this world, perhaps, that is more talked of and less understood than the business of a happy life. And that is true. You wouldn't meet anyone who told you that they want an unhappy life. We all want happiness. But what is happiness? This question is already very important. We cannot be all seeking for the same thing. We are humans and we share common traits, but what makes me happy would make someone else miserable. Which means that the business of the happy life is fully subjective. And therefore, the only person that can bring you to that happy life is yourself. So what is the point of this book? Well, this book is going to be a guide. It won't show you where to go, but it'll tell you how to get there. And these are different. You will find your own destination, but the directions you're going to take are going to be guided by a very intelligent teacher, in this case, Seneca. As he says, it's also the less understood thing. Many people say they want a happy life, yet every single action and thought that they undertake is going in the opposite direction, where technically what they're doing is the exact opposite. They're looking for an unhappy life. We do not want to be this type of people. We want to be different. We live, however, in a blind and eager pursuit of it. And the more haste we make in a wrong way, the further we are from our journey's end. Even though that destination differs from individual to individual. We can still intellectualize the concept by thinking that there is a path that leads to it. Not all of these paths are straight, and are not all the same, of course, but there is a path. And that's important because it means that if there is a right path, then there are wrong paths. And the worst way to go about it is to not just take the long way there, but to actually go backwards. So instead of going towards happiness here, you're going the opposite direction. Many people do that. Many people actively think they're working on their happiness, and yet they are building their own destruction. If we be right, if we're on the right track, we shall find every day how much we improve. But if we either follow the cry or the track of people that are out of the way, we must expect to be misled and to continue our days in wandering in error. Very important. The happy life, as you will see, as you apply it into your own life to find it, is not something that is going to just appear. Meaning that you're not going to wake up one day or stumble upon it. But it also does not mean that it's completely devoid of any signs, because you will be able to tell that you are actually progressing on the path. And that is, just like with lifting, signs of progression, because you are improving. For example, let's say you want to work on your mental health to have a happier life. Okay, your mental health is not going to just massively increase one day. It's going to be a slow process, but then effectively there will be an epiphany at some point. It doesn't mean that you massively improved at once, rather you realized the totality of the progression afterwards, and it hits you like a truck. We need to be very careful, therefore, to not be misled, because if you follow someone who's going in the wrong direction, then you're also going to move further away from happiness. So we must expect to be misled. You need to be on your guard when you're looking for happiness, because there are going to be many false prophets. Since happiness is that thing that we all desire, there must be many people who are going to use that to their advantage to try and seduce you. Be careful of these people. Let us not therefore follow like beasts, but rather govern ourselves by reason rather than by example. Key, because you're going to be listening to my words and my voice, and you have for a very long time if you follow this series. And I've always told you that what you must listen to is not me, it's your reason. Your reason is telling you whether or not what I say is worthy of following or not. And if you just completely forgo that reason, then you are no better than a beast. You just follow instructions, follow guidelines that you don't understand. You need to be fully in charge of whatever decision you take, and for that to be possible, you need to be conscious. And the mischief is that the number of the multitude carries it against truth and justice, so that we must leave the crowd if we would be happy. For the question of a happy life is not to be decided by vote. Nay, so far from it, that plurality of voices is still an argument of the wrong. The common people find it easier to believe than to judge, and content themselves with what is usual, never examining whether it be good or not. Follow-up paragraph that is very applicable to our society today. The multitude isn't right. Just because a vast amount of people tell you that the way to happiness is this way doesn't mean that they're right. If anything, there is a much higher chance of them being wrong. Why? Because they are numerous. And therefore, a mistake is like a virus. It is very easy to contaminate others. And the danger of the virus is that if the entire community or group of people is now infected, no one is going to be able to realize that an infection is occurring. Likewise, a large amount of people or society or culture heading towards certain death, for the most part, is not able to tell, because they are building up an echo chamber for themselves, and they are constantly nurturing a Stockholm syndrome of sorts, so they can never actually see the truth and actually aim for happiness. You need to leave the crowd. Not necessarily physically, but mentally. You need to remove your brain from the collective. Your brain has no place in the collective. Your brain serves your individuality. If you stop letting your brain make you an individual, you relinquish your ability to use your brain. Someone else uses it for you. A lot of people who are part of groups or cults or whatever, if you could actually see what they are, like spiritually, they're puppets. Their brains have been removed. There is an overarching brain. We talk about puppet masters, and a lot of people like to represent that, where they show like someone with strings and like a sea of corpses of zombies. I would replace that person by a brain. There doesn't need to be a physical person. There just needs to be an idea that can govern people, because they have given up the power to question that idea or to come up with an idea themselves. You are the master of your destiny. Let no one decide for you or think for you. Because again, if someone thinks for you, they become your master. A happy life cannot be decided by vote, because it's just yours to decide. It's very subjective. And since the common people find it easier to believe than to judge, then they look for people to believe. And this makes them vulnerable. It's, I believe, an inclination of humankind and the human species, where if you judge or if you come up with something yourself, you now run the risk of failing, and the failure is on you 100%. But if you just follow someone and follow what they believe, even if you fail, it's not really your fault. And I think that this is extremely attractive for a lot of people. Of course, you want to push that away. That's comfort. You want to be uncomfortable. You want to make your own choices. The true felicity of life is to be free from perturbations, to understand our duties towards God and man, to enjoy the present without any anxious dependence upon the future. So this is the mind that is going to lead to happiness, right? So far on chapter 1, we are really just describing what this happiness is going to constitute, okay? Because it needs to be described. I do think that the deeper we're going to go into the book, the more descriptive and the more precise it's going to become. We're going to scope in. But I think that it was extremely important for Seneca to start with this, because if you make a book about On the Happy Life, and you never describe what a happy life is, it's going to just make the entire experience and work null and void. Nope. I actually was about to skip a chapter. So, as I said here, I think this is pretty crystal clear. All of these things described in terms of finding the true felicity of life have been already discussed by Marcus Aurelius. The great blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. Okay, so the idea is that your ability to find the happy life is already within you. You do not need to buy it, to loan it, or to obtain it from anyone else. It's within you. You were born with it. You have lost touch with it, but it is yours to summon again. You just need to wish it and work on it. Again, very key and very important. The gurus of self-improvement that are trying to sell you the secret formulas are false prophets, because they are deviating from that principle. Tranquility is a certain equality of mind, which no condition of fortune can either exalt or depress. So not only were you born with that ability, it is also stable and non-wavering. It will never go away from you. It will never be taken away from you. No one can remove your ability to seek the happy life. And I know that a lot of people tell themselves that. They say that, oh, my life is like this because of this group of people or because of this institution. That is not true. They might have an influence on it, but at the end of the day, the choice and the struggle towards the happy life was yours to undertake. And once you accept that, I believe it is quite freeing, because understanding that there is an unalienable part of you that makes you human and that never leaves your side is comforting. And that part is you. It's your true self. Nothing can make it less, for it is the state of human perfection. It raises us as high as we can go, and makes every man his own supporter. Whereas he that is borne up by anything else may fail. So yes, the idea also is that you are supporting your own self. Why? Because if you end up depending on others, not only is it a comfortable thing to do, and therefore you're missing the point because you are allowing yourself an excuse in case you fail. On top of that, you are almost guaranteed to fail because that thing that you're resting upon is going to eventually go away. And when that happens, what? You just stop. If what you rest on is you, then the continuation and the struggle towards the happy life is never ending, because since you are in reality nurturing your true self, as you do that, as you embark on that journey, well, the self that you rest on gets stronger and stronger. So it's a virtuous circle as opposed to a vicious circle where you depend on others. It must be a sound mind that makes a happy man. There must be constancy in all conditions, a care for the things of this world, but without trouble, and such an indifferency for the bounties of fortune that either with them or without them, we may live contentedly. So the condition towards happiness is a sound mind. This is the key, right? It's the reason why we started by describing what a happy life is because you start by describing the object, and you then move on to the predisposition that leads to the object, and that is the mind. It's not the body, as you can see here, it's not the riches. None of that matters to have a happy life, because the happy life is within, and the sound mind is also within. As you can tell, there's also the description of the indifferency, and I think that's important too, because as you move towards what you are going to perceive as a happy life, there needs to also be the understanding that whether or not you achieve it, it doesn't really matter. Meaning that the struggle and the journey part of the entire experience is what matters. Because in truth, this is what a happy life is. You will never reach a happy life. I'm sort of jumping the guns here, but it's sort of the conclusion of this all. The happy life and the predisposition and the actions you're going to undertake to get it is what makes the happy life. There must be neither lamentation, nor quarreling, nor sloth, nor fear, for it makes a discord in a man's life. He that fears serves. So the perturbations of your emotions are put into question. And here, I do believe that the idea behind it is that if you let that quest towards the happy life perturb you, then you've already lost, because you have put yourself out of the necessary condition to achieve that. You need a balanced emotional state to be able to get where you want to be. Since, as he says here, he that fears serves. Your emotions are going to stir you away from your actual goal. Emotions that you're going to encounter because you're so emotionally invested in the goal. That's the truth too. People who struggle and who are desperate for a happy life end up moving away from it, because now you're not in the right state of mind for that pursuit. So you need to be very careful. You will start serving other people's interest, and if you start becoming devoured by your emotions. The only way to serve yourself is to be free from them. True joy is a serene and sober motion, and there are miserably out that take laughing for rejoicing. So again, Stoicism is not the complete rejection of emotions or happiness. It's the opposite. It's seeking and looking for what is considered to be true emotions. And the true emotions are the ones that are not going to move the soul. This is in contradiction, of course, with what our modern society considers to be joy, because this is the questioning of the first chapter in the first place. Look at what most of our contemporaries consider a happy life. A lot of money, potentially a lot of casual sex, maybe even drugs, the overconsumption of products that fill you up with immediate pleasure. That is widely accepted as a happy life. Most people, if they're told, okay, what is one thing I can give you to give you a happy life? They would say money. And it's because they are lost. They are putting all of their eggs in the basket of immediate gratification, and they're forgetting that all of that rejoices you in an instant is not worth having. Since joy is a serene and sober motion, which I agree with. The seat of it is within, the seat of joy and happiness. And there is no cheerfulness like the resolution of a brave mind that has fortune under his feet. He that can look death in the face and bid it welcome opens his door to poverty and bridles his appetites. This is the man whom Providence has established in the possession of inviolable delights, describing now the state of the man who possesses the reasonable mind, the key to happiness. How must you conduct yourself? Well, in this fashion. And all of this, again, was covered by Marcus Aurelius plentifully. As the body itself is rather a necessary thing than a great, so the comforts of it are but temporary and vain. Besides that, without extraordinary moderation, their end is only pain and repentance. So this is, I think, the first time I read that in this entire series on Stoicism. The idea that the body is, one, an obligation, because we're not pure spirits, but two, more than just an obligation, a weight, a burden. The fact that we are shackled by our body, that stops us from elevating ourselves. But here, I don't perceive any contempt or resentment. I think that Seneca sees the body as something unavoidable. We are what we are. And because we have a body, we are men. And therefore, for us to be happy, we cannot ignore the body. That's very important. The body is never ignored. You are never told to transcend the limits of the body. You are told, however, to bend the body to the spirit's mind. And that is very different. And this is why comfort is, of course, vain. Is because you are cuddling something that at the end of the day doesn't truly matter. The state of comfort doesn't matter. Right now, I'm sitting on something that's very uncomfortable. Does it matter? No. It's a physical sensation that lasts as I keep this position going. When I stop, it stops. So again, if in the future it has no incidence, does it matter now that my glutes are cramping up? No. Chapter 2. Human happiness is founded upon wisdom and virtue, and first of wisdom. Okay. So we started with chapter 1. Chapter 1 told us what? Chapter 1 told us about what a happy life is and where it rests. Now let's talk about the wisdom. First off, the basis of human happiness, that is wisdom. And what is wisdom? As you see, we're moving from one point to the other. As I said, we're scoping in, scoping down. Wisdom is a right understanding, a faculty of discerning good from evil, what is to be chosen and what rejected, a judgment grounded upon the value of things, and not the common opinion of them, an equality of force, and a strength of resolution. Okay, straightforward definition. As you can tell from this first episode, since this is practice, I'm not going to have much to say about it. So when I don't, I'm just going to move forward. This is, I think, very clear. I have nothing to add to that. This is wisdom. This is what we seek. I think it's important to define it because many people talk about wisdom. We revere wise men, but what is wisdom? Well, there it is. It sets a watch over our words and deeds. So it's a watcher. It's something that we possess that we're going to let observe our words, okay, the way we interact with it, and be a judge. What does a judge do? They pass down judgments, of course, of value, because you are not born wise. If you're born wise, paradoxically, you would not be able to become wise. Because someone who is born without fault and someone who always does the right thing loses the ability to question his acts because they're always correct. In a sense, you become a divinity of sorts. We're humans, we're not like this. So you must question your actions at all times. The person that stops questioning his actions is going to be moving down a path of vices and guilty pleasures very soon. And the problem is that the judgment that you apply upon yourself never dies. You can't kill that voice. Sometimes it just goes dormant for a reason or another, but it always awakes. And when it awakes, if it awakes after a large period of time where you were just fully invested in destroying your path to happiness, you're going to be filled with shame and regrets. It ransacks heaven and earth. It examines all of the circumstances of time, what it is, when it began, and how long it will continue. And so for the mind, whence it came, what it is, when it begins, how long it lasts. Always talking about wisdom. So wisdom ransacks heaven and earth. What does it mean? It means that the governing part that we all possess also has the power to govern the world. This is the reason why, by the way, we are the dominant species on this planet. We possess wisdom. Animals cannot access wisdom. Animals can access instinctual wisdom, meaning that they're going to be doing certain things and we think, okay, that looks wise to me. Yes, it does, but understand that no reasoning went into it. Pure instinct did that. And this is the reason why it's more impressive in men, in a sense, and only exists in men, is because we have evolved beyond that, meaning that we get, as a species, to question our instincts constantly. And sometimes, as you can see, since we are evolved and we are not just beasts anymore, going against your instincts can be wise. So everything, heaven and earth, can be ransacked by wisdom. It is all-powerful. It looks at all of the circumstances of time all the time, which basically means it, one, observes again, it keeps a watchful eye, and two, it thinks. It's not enough to just look. You need to think. Think about everything in your life. What is going on? Look at the sources of things. Look at the way they impact you. Look at the way they impacted you 5 years ago, etc. All of that is a must do. Because if you don't, again, you're walking on the path towards happiness, but you don't look around. You have no GPS or compass. So guess what? You're going to get lost. Because you've stopped questioning. Always think to yourself, is what I'm doing moving myself forward towards happiness? It differs from philosophy as avarice and money. The one desires, and the other is desired. The one is the effect, and the reward of the other. Very interesting comparison in a book of philosophy, of course, and I think key, because it's going to open a longer discussion afterwards. So, wisdom isn't happiness. Wisdom is what leads you to happiness. Why is it so important? Many people stop at wisdom. They get wise and they think that's the end all be all. No. Wisdom is a key, but where is the door? If you just have the key, it's completely useless. It's supposed to open the door. Which also means what? People who just have wisdom but don't apply it don't really have wisdom. Because if wisdom and its only goal in life is to get you upon the path of happiness, then if it doesn't do that, is it really wisdom anymore? The question is no. So differentiate between the desire and the desired. These are not the same thing. He that is perfectly wise is perfectly happy, and we must practice what we preach. For philosophy is not a subject for popular ostentation, nor does it rest in words, but in things. It is not a subject for popular, I already said that. It is not an entertainment taken up for delight, or to give a taste to our leisure, but it fashions the mind, governs our actions, tells us what we ought to do and what not. With just this paragraph, Seneca murdered 95% of modern philosophers who just write books of philosophy for the heck of it. This is wrong. This is not the way to be. Philosophy is an applied science, as I said at the start. If you don't apply it, it's not a science anymore. It's nothing. It's banalities. I think that The Greeks of old would be horrified to look at some of those banquets thrown by our modern mastermind literature genius that just sit around and engage in what is called intellectual masturbation that leads nowhere. Plus, all of these men, if you look at them and the way they live their life, they apply absolutely nothing of the philosophy they preach, and that cannot be. I guarantee you that if you got those guys, those three guys, and you could bring them back to life, you would shake their hands and you would feel something. Okay, these were real men, meaning that they didn't just sit at a desk and write on pieces of paper. They were physically active and they had souls of fire. And that is the difference between an actual philosopher and a poser. You want to be the former, not the latter. Because he who is wise is perfectly happy, and he who is perfectly happy is also wise. So we must practice what we preach. Everything that you hear in the Educated Barbarian or that you read, try to apply it in your life. Try to actually make a difference in your life. Philosophy is not for leisure. It's not just something you do to pass the time. Again, that is a travesty of nature. And it's not supposed to be for your delight. Just like drinking water or eating, first and foremost, is for survival. If it becomes for pleasure first, you have a problem. You are moving away from happiness. So, wisdom is a governing force. And the philosophy that leads to wisdom is that force, meaning that it's guidelines. This is the reason why, as I said, it's good to open up that type of Stoicism analysis with the meditations, because it gives you that little taste of like vanilla. It's enough so that you don't feel like you're reading, again, just an endless list of directions. But at the end of the day, that's what true philosophy is. And some philosophers manage to actually camouflage it underneath literary prowess and poesy, but a lot of them don't. And those who don't are not worse for it. If anything, they are better because they're giving you the crux of philosophy. They're giving you the source and the essence of it. It gives us peace by fearing nothing and riches by coveting nothing. So it frees you. I'm sure you heard that sentence, the truth will set you free. Well, the truth is a synonym for wisdom and vice versa. Wisdom will set you free because it allows you to see the world for what it is. There is no condition of life that excludes a wise man from discharging his duty. If his fortune be good, he tempers it. If bad, he masters it. So again, there is no excuse for not being wise. There is no condition or circumstances that can make you unwise. Any way you go on the path to happiness, you must be wise. And even if good fortune strikes, you temper it. If it's bad, you master it. But you never deviate. Some people have the skill of reclaiming the fiercest of beasts. They will make a lion embrace his keeper, a tiger kiss him, and an elephant kneel to him. This is the case of a wise man in the extreme difficulties. Let them be never so terrible in themselves. When they come to him once, they are perfectly tame. This is something we spoke about a ton, where the actual value and nature of the things that run into you in life depend entirely on the way you actually apprehend them. You give them meaning. They have no meaning. A rock to the face is neutral. The rock is not trying to hurt you. If you get hurt, you got yourself hurt. And this is something that is controllable. It's within your control. The reason why he says that again is because a lot of people are going to use the I want to be able to pronounce that word properly. The vicissitudes of life as an excuse to explain why they were not able to be wise. That is a bad excuse. You are still in capacity to be wise, you just decided not to be. She being wisdom, allows nothing to be good that will not be forever. No man to be happy, but that needs no other happiness than what he has within himself. So the principles of wisdom and the happy life are different from person to person. The guidelines and the directions towards that are not, but most importantly, they're unmovable. Meaning that what was true back then is still true today. And you see that Perfectly. And to me, it also shows that regardless of how much we evolve, we're always humans. And there is something precious and beautiful about being able to connect with the words of someone who was not alive in the last 1,000 years. More importantly, I connect more with these words than the words of many of the people that I know in modern life. And that is for one simple reason. The path to happiness has always remained the same. And we are many to walk on it and many to actually miss it entirely. You will always resonate with those who are on the path. Always. As happiness is found within yourself. Happiness is not how do you say that in English? Happiness is not a retroactive concept, meaning that someone who was happy 1,000 years ago would be happy today. Even if the conditions and the context of their life changes. Why? Because true happiness is found within the self. And so this also goes for us. We're not going to jump in a time machine, but if I change your environment, you should still be happy. Because if your happiness depended on the environment, you weren't truly happy at all. Because what is good now is good forever. And that goes for happiness too. It's sort of it's a metaphor in a sense. Your happiness, since it's unmovable because it depends on you, also will be infinite because it's going to perpetuate itself. It is agreed upon all hands that right reason is the perfection of human nature, and wisdom only the dictate of it. So he straight up says it, right reason is the perfection of human nature. Very important, a big part of Stoicism that makes it so attractive is that it doesn't temper, it doesn't ponder. It says this is the way, and there is no point in questioning if this is the way. It is that. I think modern philosophy has lost itself in relativism, where it's always trying to dissect certain things and everything. The problem is that a modern philosopher would write 500 pages on what is a happy life and just get nowhere and give absolutely no valuable information. Seneca was like, you know what, I'm giving you 2 pages about what a happy life is, and that's it. We move on. Excellent. Be decisive. Right? Don't be an idiot, keep an open mind. But in life, you need to be taking decisions. A principle is rigid. If your principles are like this, you have no principles because you have no spine. You need to be principled. Whereas folly is never long pleased with the same thing, but still shifting of counsels and sick of itself. I have seen that throughout my life, times and times again. Rightful people are like mountains, statues, they are immovable. Crazy people or people who are not on the path to happiness or who are not of good advice are always changing, always moving, constantly reinventing themselves. These are people you want to pay attention to because instead of putting in the work and trying to move towards their happiness, they're trying to contort themselves into trying to find a way out, in a sense. They have failed to understand that who they are is linked to one and only one path to happiness. And they think that if they switch personalities or decisions or judgments, they're going to be put on a different path that is going to be easier. And a lot of them even convince themselves that to find the path, they need to find their true self. Your true self is found on the path. You don't find the path before you find the true self. That makes absolutely no sense. And yet it is extremely commonplace nowadays. And it's sick of itself. And that talks to self-hatred. You cannot be happy if you hate yourself, that's a given, but not for the reason you think. It's not because you're going to constantly tell yourself that you're a piece of shit, but because self-hatred locks the door of the path to happiness. You cannot walk on it because you lack wisdom. Wisdom is the key. A wise man doesn't hate himself, he loves himself. So that is a very important step. First step, if you're watching this video and you want to walk towards the happy life, you need to love yourself. This is your number one priority. Find a way to love yourself. You will not find love at the end of the path because you cannot walk the path, but most importantly, it is laughable to believe that you will only be able to love yourself once you're happy. This is a dangerous, dangerous mind. Because one, it's linking self-love to pleasure, in a sense, to happiness, losing the point of what happiness is described as here. To be able to go towards it, you need to know yourself, and to know yourself, you need to love yourself. So focus on that first and foremost. A wise man, in what conditions soever he is, will still be happy, for he subjects all things to himself. For he subjects all things to himself, because he submits himself to reason and governs his actions by counsel, not by patience. What I just described, that is a wise man, that is a man who loves himself. He is not moved with the utmost violence of fortune, nor with the extremities of fire and sword, whereas a fool is afraid of his own shadow, and surprised at ill accidents, as if they were all leveled at him. The wise man sees the world as a sea that just happens to be here and needs to be crossed. A fool, someone who is abitted by folly, is going to think of the world as the same thing, but they're going to believe that every single wave, every single storm is aimed at him. They're not going to think, okay, this just so happens to be there and I have to go through it. No, they'll think, this has been personally sent to me to prevent me from reaching happiness. Keep in mind one thing, there is no such thing as an outside force that is trying to prevent you from reaching happiness. The only thing that can stop you is you. And so, this is also why you need to love yourself. If you make an enemy of yourself, then yes, you're going to be in your own way constantly. There are enough difficulties in this world, as I said, with the waves and the storms, without you building up a weird sense of self-persecution and thinking that this is a personal attack. It's not. We're all dealing with it. And those who actually go through and manage to conquer it are the ones who are going to see it for what it is. Some accidents there are, which I confess may affect him, but not overthrow him, as bodily pain, loss of children and friends, the ruin and desolation of a man's country. One must be made of stone or iron not to be sensible of these calamities, and besides it, it were no virtue to bear them if a body did not feel them. Okay, I included this because it's important. Again, I see many people who call themselves stoic who act like they're made of stone. Like they think that being stoic means having no reaction whatsoever. That's wrong. You react as a stoic, but you don't let things that are out of your control move you. It doesn't mean that you're just an emotionless statue or robot. It means that you're in control. There's a difference between feeling anger and controlling it, and not feeling anything, because the man who feels nothing is not virtuous. He feels nothing. If I told you, okay, who is more virtuous? The man who wanted to rob someone and didn't, or the one who didn't want to rob them? Well, in absolute terms, the one who didn't want to rob, because even their thoughts weren't impure, but they have no thoughts. So it's actually number one, because number one is human. The reason why I present that to you is because, as Seneca knows, there is no such thing as number two. A man who has no ill thoughts doesn't exist. Pro tip for your life, which has nothing to do with Seneca's book, but if you meet people, especially men, who tell you that they have never any ill thoughts, that they are just perfect, cute little rabbits, be extremely wary of them. These are the most dangerous people because, one, they are either trying to convince you that they are inoffensive to be able to fool you or trick you more effectively, or two, they are so disconnected with their true self that they have convinced their own brain that they have no demons. That is a lie. They have demons. The problem is that the day they arise, they're not going to be able to control them. Just like a man who has forgotten he has a pit bull in his garden, the day the pit bull goes rampant, he's not going to control him. He doesn't know he has a dog. Be very, very careful of these people. You need for yourself and for the people around you to have a clear understanding of what you are. Not who you are, what you are. You're human, you're a beast. You're a beast that has just taken the shape of a civilized being, but that's a lie. Deep down there is a beast. If you don't control that beast, it will control you. So it's fine to feel emotions. And if you did not feel them, as he says here, then it means that the body did not feel them, and therefore you're not supposed to read this book because you're a robot. This is, again, I'm insisting, every single man is subjected to their emotions, but they don't have to be a subject to it. There's a difference. So the virtue can only exist because we are being tempted. Without temptation, there is no virtue. And I'm going to finish with a word of hope and encouragement, because you have just listened to me talk about the happy life for a while, and you might be thinking, wow, this is strenuous, there's a lot of things I don't do, I'm never going to get there. Well, let me present to you what Seneca very smartly put at the end of chapter 2. There are 3 degrees of proficiency in the score of wisdom. The first are those that come within sight of it, but not up to it. They have learned what they ought to do, but they have not put their knowledges in practice. They are past the hazard of a relapse, but they still have the grudges of a disease, though they are out of the danger of it. By a disease, I do understand an obstinacy in evil, or an ill habit that makes us over-eager upon things which are either not much to be desired or not at all. A second sort are those that have subjected their appetites for a season, but are yet in fear of falling back. A third sort are those that are clear of many vices, but not of all. They are not covetous, but perhaps they are choleric, nor lustful, but perchance ambitious. They are firm enough in some cases, but weak enough in others. There are many that despise death, and yet shrink at pain. There are diversities in wise men, but no inequalities. One is more affable, another more ready, a third a better speaker, but the felicity of them all is equal. And I will leave you with that for today. There is no competition. You are not in a race with other men to be wiser. That is the game of force. You are doing that for yourself. Understand that even the third sort of people who is being described as the most wise have still flaws. They still have demons, okay? But they're just a little bit more in control than the rest. And that is what you need to shoot for. It's a very slow and long process. I myself am full of demons, but I'm working towards it, and I hope you are doing it as well as we continue with the series about Stoicism. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.